This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And the opening half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV. A multitude of insurance needs. In fact, the suit is a walking insurance policy. Customer service means everything to them. There's a lot of ways to interpret you.
I figured you were going to say liability.
Nope.
Does Purdy cover me
on the
too?
Positive side, and then let you. Well, they do have to work harder for certain people than others. All right, so.
Well put.
But customer service means everything to them because they'll do everything they can to save you money. All of Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. All right. So. This is how bad it's gotten for me. The Celtics, I guess, made a trade. They took some guy named Jaden Springer and they dealt him to Houston to save money. And I'm a Celtics fan. I have no idea who the dude is. Like, really? I mean, I said something. I was like, going, who the heck is that? How bad's that? Like, okay.
Is he the player to be named later type thing?
I have no idea who he is. Like, they sent him to the Rockets. I'm like, oh, good. I'm happy for the Rockets. I'm happy for him. I just have, like, I'll never forget one day, ESPN, which, of course, does to its credit, they do an absolutely great job of covering the NBA. Not a good job. They do a great job covering the NBA. Any little move that is made, they're on top of it. And one day, this is like 5-6 years ago, they fired their coach. I'm like, and breaking news. I'm like, breaking news? Okay. I never heard of the dude. Like, what, breaking news? How could it be breaking news if I don't know who it is?
This just in.
It's like, okay. Guess I kind of botched that one up. There's certain things that don't interest me as much anymore. And I used to follow everything. But not anymore. What about you?
It depends. I'm seasonal. Like, if it's football season, I'm into football. I just started, like we talked about the other day, I just started to get into hockey. So, once football's done, which in the case of being a Steelers fan was pretty much the Thanksgiving, then I started to focus a little bit more on hockey. Then I'll start to and hockey pretty much at April is done for me, and then it's time. Then I'm wall-to-wall baseball.
I see.
I'm playing out my seasons. Usually, it was a lot easier when all my teams stunk. Because I knew when July rolled around, the Phillies would be mathematically eliminated from everything. So then it would be time to start looking at football. Then the Steelers would be mathematically eliminated by Thanksgiving, which ironically seems to come to pass more often. But and then I could focus again on baseball or now hockey. To me, some of these seasons are too long. You were talking about this the other day with 18 weeks in the NFL. I get why they want to do it. I understand it. I'm not debating that fact.
It's a money grab.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what it is. But the problem is, and hockey and the NBA are a great example. Who plays hockey in June?
Have you ever been to Norway?
No. And because of the fact that they're playing hockey in June, I wouldn't go. You can't play hockey when it's warm. It doesn't work.
It depends.
Like the NBA, what's the NBA offseason now? 4 weeks?
No, it's longer than that. Well, I mean, if you want to count the summer league, obviously there's not a lot of time. The NBA's smart, though, in what they're doing because they've adopted more of an NFL model, and that is the finals end. Then about a week, maybe about 9 days after the finals are over with, somewhere in that area, they have the draft. And then about 8 or 9 days after the draft, they have the free agency part. So in other words, and then the summer league starts. So they're taking up more of the cycle. Baseball used to take up the cycle by, hey, the World Series takes place, and then we're going to announce the rookies of the year. Now we're going to announce the Cy Young Award winners, and now we're going to announce the MVPs, and then we're going to announce the managers of the year. Oh, and by the way, the winter meetings are going to take place. And baseball's really lost its traction in the off-season cycle. They've really lost it.
No, it's not America's pastime anymore.
But they've lost traction on it. I mean, the NBA's not America's pastime.
No. But it's the three-letter money tree.
But they have gained in the cycle, and they've adopted the NFL model in doing it, to their credit. I mean, you look at the NBA regular season ratings, it is not a pretty story. Just like right now, the NHL ratings. Now, the NHL ratings nationally are skewed just a bit. And here's the reason why. The NHL ratings are skewed on a national basis because there's a story that came out today about how TNT and ESPN, like, oh, my God, the ratings aren't great. You know, they got the Penguins-Utah game, got 113,000 viewers and whatever. Except when you dive deep into the article, you realize that those games aren't exclusive. In other words, like I watched the Utah Penguins game, but I watched it on the Penguins with Josh Getzoff and Phil Bourque. I didn't watch the national broadcast. Number one, it wasn't available to me.
I was going to say, it's a wonder it wasn't blacked out for you.
It was blacked out. So I didn't have access to it. So if I'm living in Salt Lake City or I'm living here in Pennsylvania, I can't see it. So that accounts for it. When they do the ABC game, they had the Bruins and Rangers somewhere in the last 2 weeks. It was on ABC, and it was exclusive. They had 1.1 million viewers. Well, the NBA is in that thing, and the NBA's ratings, like a lot of these games are, like their Sunday games and so forth, they're exclusive games, but they're not drawing well at all. I mean, just not. And that's just the way it is. It's the playoffs that they're paying for. So,
I'm just not a fan of the NBA and the NHL in the months that are summer months. And I don't, and you know what, that also brings up the other point that my wife actually noticed this, and I never really thought about it. But you know me, I watch just about everything in the Olympics. I mean, my DVR is filled. I've got stuff scheduled on my phone to catch during the day. She had a great point. She goes, when do they play pro basketball? And I said, well, that's, between pretty much October and, late spring. She goes, Why is it in the Summer Olympics then?
Well, it's the only time they can play it.
But why isn't it a Winter Olympic sport?
Because
it's indoor.
Because they don't want to interrupt the season to do it.
Well, but even before that was a situation. It was still a summer sport. Same with wrestling. Wrestling's a winter sport in high school and college, but it's a Summer Olympics event. See, these are the things that go through my head. She actually really had a good point there. I had to give her credit.
No, because it's the off season. It's when they can play it. I mean, the NHL has to stop its season to play in the Winter Olympics.
Right, but 20 years ago, when there wasn't any pro athletes in it, they still had it then.
Yeah, because it's played on ice.
No, the NBA is what I was referring to. Sorry. I didn't mean hockey.
Hey, what is wrong with you?
I didn't mean hockey. I was referring to the NBA.
You just went through this rant where you don't want to watch it in the summertime, and I point out it's in the Winter Olympics because it's on ice. Hey, come on.
No. I'm sorry. I was referring to the NBA there.
I think because it's in the off.
Yeah,
it's just easier for them to do it there like that.
Maybe it had something to do with college, too, because a lot of, 20, 25 years ago, college players, maybe even more than that now, but college players were making up the team, not pros. So they had to work around the college basketball schedule.
They had to work around a lot of things to do it, because you'd have to stop the college season back then to play in the Winter Olympics. So, but you look at where they are now. It's the ratings aren't great for the NBA. The ratings again for the NHL are no better than okay, but I mean that's the way it is.
Remember when Fox had the NHL that 1 or 2 years, and they had, when the puck went over like 60 miles an hour, it had a trail, and it would glow at certain speeds.
Sure. Yep. I remember that.
Even I thought that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I love stuff like that.
The only time it came in handy is when the puck was on the boards on the near side.
Yes.
You could still pick up where it was. Okay. I was fine with that. But, yeah, that's okay. Back in the day, when NBC in the early days had the NHL, they had Peter Puck explaining the games. I'm like, I grew up in New England. I don't need Peter Puck.
Okay, you're going to have to explain that one to me. What in the world is Peter Puck?
Peter Puck was a cartoon character, and Brian McFarlane would narrate it, and Peter Puck would explain to everybody what's icing, what's offsides.
I did not know that.
Right. And so Peter Puck would have fit in your neighborhood very well.
Have you seen any of the talk about changing the way you do coverage? The NFL has that deal with CBS, Viacom, or whoever owns CBS now, and Nickelodeon, where some of the games that they do with like Nickelodeon style broadcast with graphics and slime and all that stuff. I personally think, first off, I think that's a brilliant idea. You're getting another generation interested in your sport. Plus, they go to great lengths of describing the penalties and things like that cleverly. Like they had the actor that played young Sheldon pop up and explain what a holding penalty was. I thought it was brilliantly done. Now, would I want to watch that every time? No. If I had an 8-year-old, would he want to watch it? Probably.
So as an adult, you watch this?
I did watch it just for the sake of seeing what they were doing from a broadcast standpoint. And Nate Burleson was doing the color for that, I believe.
I know he does.
And Eagle, not Ian, but the
Noah.
Noah. No, I thought Noah did an outstanding job with it, too. He was doing play-by-play in the game that I saw.
Noah's a good broadcaster, just to begin with. Good guy, too. I like Noah personally. I think what they're doing with Nickelodeon is fine. I think that is a great idea because you're trying to get young people engaged.
Right.
Okay? So I love that idea that you're trying to get young people engaged in it. So as an alternate broadcast, I think it's tremendous. I have no problem at all with any alternate broadcast. Never. I don't care if you're watching the Skycam. I don't care if you're watching the local radio feed. I don't, if you think watching Pat McAfee and the guys discuss the game as they do it, or a Manning cast or something, I never have any problem at all with any alternate because it's a to each his own. So I don't have any problem with to each his own. And by doing something that gets younger people involved in understanding a sport, I think it's a great idea. Great idea. Now, that doesn't have to mean it's my personal cup of tea.
Right.
I don't care. So, I mean, that's how I view it. But I just think it's great when you can get young people to go, hey, that's really cool. So that's what that is. That's what it is. Now, I'm sure it's very interesting as they explain some of the rules in the NFL, because even even some of the officials are a bit confused by them.
Exactly what I was thinking. Maybe the officials need to listen to young Sheldon's explanation.
Okay, what's holding again?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. That was illegal contact? Oh.
I was kind of hoping that they would show young Shelton to the Big Ten referees before Abdul Carter played. That way they got to understand what holding was, too.
Maybe they need to hold the slime for bad calls.
Yeah.
Every time there's a bad call, the referee gets hit with a slime cannon, and I don't mean on the graphic broadcast either.
Okay.
Well, what do you think now of they have a sensor in the football. So they have a sensor or chip in the football, but we're not using that to determine where the ball is for first down. Now, I know that's not a perfect situation because the sensor doesn't decide where the knee comes down or the forearm or anything like that. But when it comes to when the ball's spotted, do we really need to bring the chains out anymore? They're doing it less and less anyway.
You should be using a laser.
Okay, that's fine.
To go with the sensor.
I'm fine with that.
Springer played in 26 games, averaged 5.4 minutes a game.
You're still enamored by this trade.
I don't know who the heck the guy is.
He was on the practice squad. I'm just guessing. I don't know either.
They got a 2030 second-round pick for him.
A 2030? Who trades for a 2030 pick?
I mean, I don't know what's worse, that or a player to be named later, or they traded you for cash. All right.
I'd take the cash. I'd like a pick 5 years from now, please. Are you rebuilding that far ahead?
First of all, is a second-round pick. Some second-round picks like Jokic make it. Most don't.
Hey, but wait for that 2030 draft, boy.
Yeah.
We'll have that extra pick.
Yeah. All right. We'll take a break. We have, Rich Scarcella at 1:30?
Yes, he'll be coming up in the next half hour.
Yes. All right. We'll come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Purdy Insurance.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The Beverage Supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Power brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory. Great pre-owned inventory with the all-important Sunbury Motors Guarantee. Terrific service department, whether it happens to be quick lane inspections, routine, difficult, they handle it all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. And very pleased to bring in my good friend, Rich Scarcella. Rich, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
You had the first question with Jim Knowles yesterday. You watched the entire press conference and the give and take. What was the general impression you received about Jim and how he answered questions yesterday?
I thought he answered questions very measured, in a very measured way. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I compare it to the previous defensive coordinator where Tom Allen comes at you hard and fast, just two different types of personality. So it was a little different, but I thought, of course, he handled himself well. He's been around the game a long time. He's been in this position many times. But I think some of the things that he said that I think the main thing, and I wrote that, is he came to Penn State, fully intending to put Penn State over the top when it comes to the national championship.
See, I thought the end was the part that struck me when he was talking about what he could do, and he said, I think I can help. And I think that was the part, like at the end, that was an understated, no ego, powerful message. He thought he could help. I thought that the end was, to me, what the essence of it was.
Yeah, I thought, my friend Mark Wogerich asked the question, why Penn State, why this Penn State team? There was a story out Monday about why he left Ohio State from CBS Sports. Obviously don't know if that's true or not, but I know there's a lot of rumblings that there were some issues with Ryan Day and Larry Johnson, the defensive line coach, obviously longtime Penn State assistant, over autonomy and about calling the shots on defense. And I thought it was very interesting that Jim Knowles volunteered, without being asked directly, that he plans to mesh his system with the system at Penn State because it's been so successful on defense over the last several years.
So let me ask you this about the measured part of it. He hasn't been here that long, right? And there's a pretty good chance he probably knows more about the Penn State offensive personnel than he does the defensive personnel.
True.
Right? Do you think that played a role in being measured? Because, I can't specifically tell you what I want to do with Denai Dennis Sutton. I don't really know yet.
Yeah, nobody asked. I think somebody asked him about, the defensive system, how he would describe it, the one that he runs, but nobody asked him about specific players. I think somebody asked him about the
jack position,
the Leo position, the jack. Yeah. And honestly, the first person I thought of when he was describing the Leo or the jack was Dominic DeLuca.
Yeah. So in other words, you were listening in on Jack Ham's conversation with me yesterday. There we go.
No, I was not.
We said the same thing.
Yeah, I thought of that immediately. But my point is that I thought, again, I've never sat in on a press conference with Jim Knowles before.
Right.
But maybe that's his personality. It's a measured tone. It wasn't. I don't think he was trying to be evasive or anything. I think he just wanted to make sure he said the right thing. And it's clear he's a very sharp guy. Yeah. And was I impressed with him? Yeah, I was impressed with him because he handled things in a very, again, measured way, very, not boisterous or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I was kind of hoping he'd answer the second part of Neil's question about exactly where he's going to be, which booth he was going to be calling it from.
Yeah.
That's an inside baseball joke there.
Yes. Neil was. I think Neil was trying to find out where we're going to be sitting for the 2025 season more than anything else.
Yeah, I think I've got an idea where you guys are. It's going to be opposite of where we are. Because
Yeah, that's what I heard.
booth-wise, we're staying on the same side. Now, I don't know if we're staying in a plywood box. I have no idea, but we're going to stay on that side. I remember when Indiana redid their box. Remember that, Rich?
I do.
And they were
Yes.
redoing it, and as you know, we sit out in an all-glass booth, which we refer to as the hot house, but that's just a nickname, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when they were redoing it, it was plywood. It was 27 degrees. They're all in there like, gross.
I think that was the 0-2 game when Larry Johnson went off in the quicksand.
Larry Johnson ran for 327 yards on sand that was painted green. Yeah. So, all right. So, what statement do you think it made to people that James Franklin identified a person that he thought was the best person for this job and was allowed to go out and get that person?
Well, first of all, I don't think, again, from watching from a distance, it doesn't appear that he thought he'd be able to get him, that he'd be available. He'd be available. I shouldn't say that he'd be able to get him. I think it's a clear indication that Penn State, from the top down, is all in with the football program right now, and especially for this particular season. I think if you're a Penn State fan, you should be very, very happy with that. I think the commitment is clearly there from the top down. Obviously, with the financial, not only with Knowles' $9 million contract, but also reportedly Anthony Poindexter getting a raise, and also all of the players that they were able to keep. Obviously, they had to pay them something with NIL money, but what it still shows that Penn State is fully committed to winning a national championship. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's the money part of it that's going to be interesting. How interested are you? Because the fans now know they're getting money. Now, they're still 18 to 23. How interested are you in how fans will react to college players going forward? Because they've always reacted differently to college players than they have to pro players. Do you think that line has now been completely blurred?
That's a great question, Steve. I don't think a lot of fans, college football fans, not just Penn State fans, know exactly how much some of the players are getting. They've seen reports about this guy here at Michigan, quarterback coming in, or other players, maybe in Texas. I think they would be surprised, very surprised, to learn how much some of their favorite players are getting. And I think, would they be upset? I think some might be, but I think most would understand that this is the way the game is right now. I've had so many people over the last few years complain to me about the transfer portal, complain to me about why are they paying players when they're getting scholarships, full scholarships. And I said, look, we can argue that all we want, but we're not going back. And this is the way it is, so you have to deal with it.
And you do have to do it. I mean, there's no question. You have to adapt to what the current system is.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to keep doing it the old way, don't be the first person to complain when you're 2-10. You've lost the right to complain about a 2-10 season if you want to do it the old way, because that's not how it works. When you look at have you taken a long look at the House settlement and the $20.5 million that people are that schools will be allowed to pay if they wish to athletes? Have you taken a look at that?
I haven't taken a deep dive into it, and it's something that I would like to do between now and spring practice, and maybe I'll get an opportunity to do that. I mean, I'm well aware of it, and I'm, I know the money is coming. I mean, expected to come, I should say. But no, I don't know the details of the whole thing.
Yeah, because April 7th is going to be the big day as to when Judge Claudia Wilkin is expected. There'll be challenges, but expected to approve it. It's going to be interesting because you already know that what you just talked about player retention.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those agreements are in place because of the $20.5 million and not just NIL.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, I use the NIL as a term only.
Okay, gotcha.
Not to mention the House settlement money, but you're right. And honestly, with some schools, including Penn State, if that settlement doesn't go through, there could be a lot of scrambling going on.
Right. Oh no, there's no question. Everybody would be in a scramble mode.
Yeah.
Because of that. Do you in any way? I mean, I think I know exactly what your answer is going to be, but do you cover this in any way that's different compared to years gone by because of the money involvement?
I mean, what I write is different, but I don't think I change the way I cover it because, I mean, we're not privy unless somebody comes forward and tells me exactly how much players are making at Penn State and reveals it to me. I mean, we don't really know. We can guess. We can all guess. We have an idea, but we don't really know exactly how much players are getting. And that's the only change. And I'm actually surprised that more figures haven't come out across the country on players. I mean, there's some speculation and a few stories have come out about people, but I'm surprised there haven't been more.
Yeah. How important will it be to talk to Jim Knowles after spring practice and find out if he is still matter of fact about things versus actually having some answers in his own head about players? How important is that going to be to you?
Yeah, I think it'll be really important because he'll have how many months? February, 4 or 5 months experienced interacting with the staff, interacting with everybody in the Lash building, interacting with the players above everything else. And I think it'll be really interesting. And I'm really looking forward to delving into his background as a Philly guy, the son of a Philly cop. And, I'd like to know more about that. I know somebody asked him about what he thinks it means to be, from Philly. And he talked about the toughness and resilience, and I agree with that. But I'm more curious. I'm curious to find out more about his real background. Like I am, and that's just how I am with everybody. It's not just Jim Knowles, but it's just with everybody.
What's interesting is, to me, it's not just the Northeast Philly background. It's the Cornell background.
Yep.
And it's not as if Jim hasn't been a head coach. He was the head coach at Cornell for a period of time. And I would wonder how being a head coach, Ivy League or not, has meshed with how he thinks as a coordinator, where he's working one half of the ball instead of being the CEO of the whole thing.
Well, I think he's pretty comfortable in that. I think he made that clear yesterday. Is that when somebody asked him about aspirations, I think it was Neil. He has no aspirations to be a head coach. He made that pretty clear, and he's 59, and I'm a little older than him, and I understand where he's coming from. He just wants to do what he wants to do. He probably could be a head coach somewhere. Sure. Somebody would hire him, I'm sure. Yeah. But I think, I think his head coaching experience is important. And I know, talk about complimentary ball. He mentioned that about what it's something that he has noticed and admires about James Franklin is that he's not the offensive play calls complement the defense. Like you're not, trying to score as fast as you can and then go 3 and out, 3 passes, and the defense is back on the field. Excuse me, Steve. So I think he's well aware of a lot of things. I think, just based on everything that I've read about him and what I saw yesterday, I think he's a really sharp guy.
Well, it was interesting because there's no doubt in my mind that reference was to Oklahoma State. Being in the Big 12, you're like, oh, great, I got to go back out there again? We just got off the field.
Yeah.
It's interesting how much the game has changed along the way. You've now experienced the 12-team playoff. In seeing the 12-team playoff, I know I asked you about whether you'd make any changes in it or not, but just what do you think it's meant to college football to get to 12 teams in terms of the interest in the game?
I think it's a great thing for the sport. I think the sport needed it. We talked about the changes. I don't know if I would move the schedule back and have it end on January 1st. I don't agree with that necessarily, but I do think having a 12 team, expanding it to 12 teams, expanding the playoff to 12 teams, really drove up the interest in the sport in November and in December. I think it's great, and I have no problem if they go to 16. I don't want to see it more than 16.
Right.
But I mean, if they went to 16, I'd have no problem with it. I think the interest is clearly there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think I that's the way I felt. I mean, ask Penn State fans how they feel about it. Finally getting to the college football playoff and succeeding in it. That close to being in the national championship game. Yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Well, you can usually get a gauge either on readership or clicks or whatever, or just people talking to you. Are you getting that gauge from them?
No doubt about it. Talking to people out in public. In my second career, my broadcasting career, doing high school basketball games, people want to talk about Penn State all the time, especially over the last month and a half. During basketball season, some of the coaches I deal with are Penn State fans, and they ask me this and that, and I've heard nobody complain about the playoff like around here. I've heard. I think there's a tremendous amount of interest in it.
Yeah, I think it's done wonders for the sport. And again, as I've said many, many times, college football's biggest problem over the years has been the people who run college football. They never have been able to understand what made the public tick. And they always thought that, it's great, we can argue when the season's over. No, I don't want to argue when the season's over. What the heck are you talking about? I want to find out who the champion is. That's just
Steve, have we heard since January 20th? I haven't heard, Alabama, South Carolina, whoever complaining that they deserve to be in the field. I don't think it's. I think you got a legitimate national champion, in Ohio State. I don't think anybody's arguing that they're not a legitimate champion, and that's because they went through the process. They won 4 games. I just think it's a great thing, and I'm with you. I never got it draws interest in the sport arguing over who should be number 1 or who should be in the 4-team playoff. I never got that. I never understood that.
Always a pleasure, my friend. I know we covered a multitude of topics as usual. You were outstanding. Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure, Steve. Safe travels to the West Coast.
Appreciate it. Thanks. And Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle. Always great to talk with him. And great to have you on board as well. This half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When car repairs get difficult.
Well, I just don't know.
Me neither.
We get good. Sunbury Motors. More than quality new and used cars, Sunbury Motors specializes in complicated auto repair diagnosis. They can handle intricate repairs and even complete auto body with service open Monday through Friday, 7 till 4. And Sunbury Motors has made simple repairs easy. Maintaining your vehicle is necessary. Finding the time to do it is difficult. Welcome to Sunbury Motors Quick Lane. Just walk in or call ahead. Relax in their remodeled waiting room with Wi-Fi, beverages, and snacks. Will Sunbury Motors factory-trained techs take care of your oil change, tire alignments, brakes, and inspections. Quick Lane, 6:30 to 6 Monday through Friday, Saturday, 6:30 till 2. Sunbury Motors, Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury. And Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. We take the out of auto repair.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.